A lot of women make the mistake and think holding out on sex is for him. You're supposed to hold out on sex for you because your own judgment gets clouded if you go too early. But the 90-day rule and blah, 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 it's all like, yeah, I'm going to make him wait so he knows I'm a good woman and blah, blah, blah. You're like faking your way into showing him you're a good woman. Whereas you are not having sex, you're abstaining, so you can actually take your time and view him and see, does he listen to, does he listen to you? Is he a man of his word? Is he a good guy? Like all of those checks. That is what you're supposed to do when you're abstaining. Not like, yeah, he's gonna see I'm a good woman. Like that's so dumb to me. But that's what some women do.
What age group is that? Because I feel like the youngins, they're just out there getting it in. They're not worried about all of this whoopla, vet the man and see if he's qualified. All of like they're jumping in the bed and they're getting it going. And if he commit to her, then that's fine. If he don't, she's on to the next. So it's not this vetting the man and making sure that he's qualified to be your boyfriend, hell, your husband. So
I agree. It's definitely not the early 20s that's doing the 90-day rule.
Exactly. I was about to say that's the 30s and up. That's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure we don't get played for the millionth time. So we're going to take the longest time we've ever taken in our life to decide to have sex with a man.
Yeah,
exactly. It's the ones that's made the mistakes in the past. So they're trying to right their wrongs.
Yeah. So do you think for men it makes a difference for whether you make them wait for a period of time and get to know you, or for you can tell off bat like, all right, she the one, and I don't care whether we do it within the first week we meet or the first 3 months?
I think most men know right off the bat. We could within a week we can tell, because we're gonna hear all the conversation. With social media, we're gonna see everything y'all have to present, because y'all talk way too much to me. Y'all tell everything, y'all post everything, y'all share everything. So we're gonna be able to tell within that first week. We just need to confirm it by having these conversations, these interrogations, these in-person interrogations, and that's all we need to confirm. And like you said, we're gonna knock you down. So you could hold me out 30 days, 90 days if you want to. I told you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go next door and I'm gonna wait you out.
So if she
and if I feel like now you answer all my questions, now you answer my sexual desire question, you know how to get me to the point where, hey man, I just gotta have you every time, because the pussy's wet, you know what I'm saying, the kitty stay on moist. I ain't got nothing to worry about. Now that puts you over the edge. So now shit, I can't let these other snakes have it for right here. I'm fatting up for myself.
That's the crazy part. You're abstaining from sex, but y'all having these X-rated conversations. Like, I don't understand when women are saying no, but that's what I'm saying. It makes no sense to me. Like, that's how I know they're trying to portray themselves as a wholesome woman, because I'm abstaining from sex, but I'll do everything else. That doesn't mean actual sex. Like, that's crazy to me.
They're actually the ones that bring up the conversation, or rather break the ice about sort of sex or sexual escapade. I find it, based on the conversations that I've had with, friends, close friends, colleagues, is that most of the women are really the ones who are initiating that sex conversation. Somewhere along the talking and getting to know phase, right? It's however way it shows up, they're the ones that are initiating. So it's only easy for the guy to kind of transition into that conversation, because they're going to talk about, what are your interests, things like that, right? Grown folks are going to do what grown folks are going to do. But I think that unfortunately it gets brought up too prematurely, and it kind of ruins or spoils the sort of that mystery to kind of get to know you a bit. Like you guys talked about earlier, it's like, well, I don't want to wait, 6 months, 9 months and find out that the sex was whack. Well, I mean, Do you focus too much on the sex itself, or do you have, you know, a mental connection with this person where you kind of like him in every capacity, right? Because I think that, you know, certain parts of sex, you know, you could work on, or you could have conversations through, you know. But unfortunately, I find that a lot of people who have these conversations, they're like, I'd rather go through the mud with someone that I'm not compatible with, but the sex is amazing. Mm-hmm. So therefore, it tells me that you are a sex addict.
Exactly. That's exactly where I was going. Most people are sex addicts out here now. So they want sex. Sex is always on their mind. So it's kind of hard to address the issues that we're having when they're not even addressing their sex addiction. It's like,
so at what point, well, what would be a reasonable time frame, do you think, that a talk about sex should come up? So let's say you're refraining from sex because you're really trying to get to know the person, but let's be real, when you're in a relationship, sex is a huge part. It plays a big part in it. So at what point should you, as a woman, introduce the topic of sex?
Well, I think it depends on what you're what answer you're looking for. Now, if you want to know if the man has any STDs, yeah, you might want to know that pretty soon. I wouldn't wait long, you know, because that's very important. You don't want to deal with nobody with STD or has a history of constantly getting STDs. So depends on what you're looking for. Now, if you're just looking for just to wonder how good he is or how big his Johnson is, if that's the type of question you're looking for or answers you're looking for, well, then you might want to wait about a month or so to introduce that. But maybe about STDs, yeah, I would try to have that within a week or two.
But what are the conversations about, like, leading up to sex? Like, how do you have those conversations early on? I personally never brought up sex. So I'm just curious to know, like, what are these women saying? Like, how good, you know, like, I don't know. I don't even know what to ask, but I'm just curious, like, what are questions that women are asking men about sex, you know, in the early stages of getting to know each other?
Good question.
Yeah. I was just curious, like, what are questions women are asking about sex, like, in the early stages of getting to know that person? Like, how big your
I mean, I've had one woman ask me, like, you know, what are your sexual boundaries, right? Like, are you someone who has a high sex drive? Is it like more often than not? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what are those kind of expectations like, right? Because we talk about them, but we just expect people to read our minds. But unfortunately, people don't have those kind of expectations. Like, is it every day? Is it every other day? Oh, I'm extremely busy. I travel. So it's like this amount of time, right? And then also, too, one thing that I've learned, and especially through conversation, is that never weaponize sex against your partner. You could have a bad day, a bad moment. You could have a disagreement. You might not be on the same page about, you know, how to handle the next chapter of your life or how to go about, you know, managing our money. And you might have a disagreement, but one thing is for sure, never weaponize sex against your partner, and never go to sleep upset or mad. You know, two of the biggest conversation points I've had in the past in my previous relationship.
Lou's about getting that angry booty. I don't blame you, Lou. I feel the same goddamn way. Yeah, if I gotta get you some ass and you mad at me, you be mad at me all you want. Give me some of that angry putty, and we're gonna be happy together later on. We're fine. We'll figure this out. We'll talk it out. But give me some of that angry putty.
I got a different spin on it, and you guys can agree or disagree with it. I do understand that not weaponizing sex against your partners, right? I get that. But I'm more aligned in trying to figure out to see if we can nip it in the bud before we even get to that point. It's just something that when women are emotionally angry at you, I don't think that you get the full potential at that moment. You know, they may do it, but they may not be really into it. They may still be thinking about what it is. So if you can kind of peep this all before it happens, kind of set the tone, like we're not going to go there. You know, maybe maybe start talking about something else. Maybe just don't get to the point where you guys are yelling. Now, there are times when you are angry and you get that look where you laugh and like, oh, I don't know what we was arguing about, and then you guys get intimate. But for the most part, I'm trying to not get to that point, because sometimes you can have angry sex, but it's just not right. It's just not right. So
it doesn't feel the same.
I'm not having no angry sex. I know that y'all say don't weaponize sex, but it's not that I'm weaponizing it. It's that I cannot have sex with you. I'm not going to lubricate right. I'm not going to be excited. I'm not going to be talking to you crazy in your ear if I'm mad at you. So I need to get that off first, and then we can get there. We can do that. But
most men don't need for you to have conversation, because we're just going to bend you over and get you from behind. I don't want to see your face. I don't want to see your face. I don't care less about your face expression. I'm going to bend you over and I'm going to do what I need to do. Now, Jay, I understand what you're saying about, I've done that. And we're not trying to get it. Wasn't now, how are we going to ask me for some sex? We just had an argument. Okay, you're right. And I stood down. But I'm not going to keep doing this. I'm not going to keep going without. Because you mad at me.
A woman's emotions, her headspace, all of that is connected to her vagina. Like physically, like even with what she was saying in terms of not even being able to get wet, like things like that. Like if we're not in a good emotional space, then sometimes the physical part doesn't even work right.
And that's why I'm not going to stay with no man if I'm always mad at him.
Argument knowing I want some sex. Sometimes y'all ladies do silly and childish stuff like that. Y'all create an argument knowing. I talked about that morning. Baby, I can't wait to get home to you. I'm looking forward to touching you all over and kissing you on your neck and slapping you on your head. All of a sudden, you want to create an argument. I really don't feel like it. Okay, I'm just going to create an argument, act like a man, and then I ain't got to give him sex. I was a victim of that bullshit.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Would you say
Oh no, I was saying like it's bigger than that. She's not attracted to you. If she's running away from the deed, then baby, you got bigger fish to fry.
And I think she's that irritated. Like you can't keep fighting. That's gonna make somebody turned off. It doesn't matter how she thought you were so fine before. If I'm constantly irritated with you, we're constantly bumping heads, then it's gonna be he's losing that attraction for me.
Look, they're self-sabotaging because it's typically something that's bigger, and that's why I think men. I understand we say we don't want to pay attention, but to a certain degree, you got to pay attention. You got to understand. It's almost like a man that play too much. I mean, shouldn't men be playing too much anyway? But let's just say you are a playful type person and you keep aggravating them. You got to know when to stop aggravating them. Like enough is enough. Now you crossing over to being
annoying,
soft. Yeah. Now the man's acting like a child.
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, Hink, I think that's one of the moments where we start to see when Mr. Lego say women act like children. It's kind of like that's what they're doing. You're not saying that they are children, but there are certain things that women can do, like keeping it up. You may not be with the boys, you may be over it, but because women have so many emotions, they may not be over it, and it may play over into sex. It may play over into how she cook your food. Maybe she might not season it right. Maybe she might just put your plate down and didn't say nothing and didn't bring your drink. So all these little things play into one another. And I think that you have to have balance. I always say you got to have balance within relationships and understanding when to turn it on, when to turn it off. You know, you can have moments within moments, but you just got to understand when it's time for that moment. So you could be she might be ready to be a super freak. You got to kind of peep that and figure out when she's ready to do that. Then you can kind of go in. She might have that moment where she might not couldn't let that argument go. And so now she wants to keep bringing it up. So you're going to have to attack it a different way.
I kind of disagree a little bit with what Lewis was saying about never go to bed angry. I understand the sentiment behind it, but sometimes you may have to, because putting stuff on ice can lead to a better, more deeper conversation to get to the real issue, the matter at hand. If I'm forced to have a conversation that I know I'm emotionally charged, I'm not necessarily going to be able to really detect what it is that's going on, because I'm just like lash out. You know what I'm saying? If I'm angry and we're having that argument, and then you're the type to say, no, we got to resolve it before we go to bed. That's not going to work, because sometimes for me, I need some time to process everything. I have to process it. So it's better for us to go to bed where I might be angry, you might be angry, but then we revisit that topic the next day or so. I think it's important to come back to it. A lot of times what happens, you'll go to bed and you're asleep on it, but then you never revisit the topic, and the issue, is swept under the rug until something else happens. And then when you're trying to address the new issue, all of the old stuff that you done swept up under the rug, comes out. But I definitely need time to process. It's better that you process and then have the conversation than saying a lot of stuff out of anger and then having to go back and apologize, because now you can't take back what you've already said. And that has probably introduced a whole nother dynamic into the relationship.
And see,
See, I agree with that, and that's
on
why I
it.
think you should wait until. So, if you're angry, something happened, immediately you're angry. Take that hour or two to calm down and think about why you're so triggered right now. Then come back to have that conversation. If it's late at night, I really don't know what you would be arguing about late at night. But if it's late at night, it's so late that y'all can't take a couple hours to think about it before you come back to the conversation, then I definitely understand going to bed and you're still angry. But for the most part, I feel like these arguments happen during the day. It doesn't make sense that it has to drag on all night long, all to the next day, all for a week. People go weeks without having sex with their partner because they mad. That's crazy to me.
I agree.
Yeah, I think the sentiment in which I was coming at it was, you'll probably get mad or upset with your partner, but understand, like, at some point you need to kind of say, like, hey, let's talk about this maybe like 2 days from now. Let's revisit this and have this conversation again. I think that we're both, in our way, and I think we should revisit this. But how often do people really have that conversation where they say, look, I think we're not going to resolve anything tonight. I think that we should discuss this probably tomorrow, or maybe in a couple of days. People are not really saying that. They're just like, just like it's my way, or like I'm still upset about you about this, right? But they don't really get to that point where both of them can both congruently can say, look, I think we should probably discuss this in a couple of days when our minds clear up. They don't do that. So now what happens is that same pent up anger that they go to sleep with, they go to work the next day, they're driving, to or from work, and people are just mentally distracted about the argument from the previous night, not paying attention to their surroundings, not paying attention to the things that they got to take care of, business, etc. They're too clouded from the conversation, from the argument the previous night, not understanding that they're supposed to check in with their partner in 2 or 3 days after they've cooled off and have thought about it for a bit.
Why do they target sex as the thing to cut off when you have an argument, when the argument probably don't even have nothing to do with sex? It's like that's the number one go-to. Like, I'm going to shut my body down because you forgot to take the garbage out, some shit. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, why does sex got to be the thing that we have in a relationship? We have to make it a privilege.
It's
And
because
somebody said, weaponize it. I use it to chastise you. Nobody's saying, look, I'm not going to cook you a meal today. I'm not going to break it open for you today. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of the arguments is surrounded by something that's totally don't have nothing to do with sex. Like, I can see if the argument was, oh, you didn't let me finish first or some shit like that. And then you reluctant to have sex or something. It actually had something to do with intercourse. Therefore, you minimize how you do it in the bed or something like that. But it's a lot of times it's outside of the bedroom.
I think it's because a lot of these arguments boil down to you feel disrespected. You feel like they don't respect you the way you want to be respected. They don't respect your opinion. They don't respect your time. They don't respect something. So it's hard to have sex with somebody that you feel doesn't have respect for you, especially if they're saying, like, I don't care about what you're trying to tell me, or I don't want to hear it when you're trying to explain to them a problem that you're going through. It's makes it to where you're like, okay, I can't connect with you in the way that I need to, and now you need me to connect in this way. it isn't going to happen because I'm already disconnected from you mentally because I feel like you're not respecting me. So my body isn't going to do the things it usually does when I don't have that anger for you or that
Well, see that,
resentment towards you.
but a man can say the same. Like y'all use sex. What if a man said, "Well, I think a lot of men can vouch. I don't feel like providing and protecting for people who don't respect me. You don't have any respect, appreciation for me. Why do I got to go to work day and night? Do I and put on these long hours and break my back for somebody who don't respect me, and then come home and be disrespected in my own place? We don't use that against y'all. We come home, we pay the bills, and we stay consistent.
But that's not true. Y'all stop talking to us. Y'all stop playing with us. Y'all stop wanting to be
Yeah,
around
but
us. You go
our
into your
duty
phone or
remains.
your
We
game.
might not have words with you, but our duty as a man in our role in the household as a husband still continue.
So sex is a duty.
Yeah.
But
I think we'll go ahead, Chen.
It's not a privilege
I
because
was just going to say,
sex is always going to be a duty unless you have conditions of not being monogamous. If you have a condition set that you're going to be monogamous, if we have to vow to be monogamous to you, then that's a duty.
I was just going to say, a woman feels connection through whatever her love language is, but a lot of times it's quality time or spending family time together. And I believe a man's connection to his woman is through sex. If a woman doesn't feel that connection, like Fantasy Island was saying, if she doesn't feel that connection in her own way, then it's going to be hard to give that man that connection in his own way. And as a couple, you're supposed to stay communicative with one another so that both ends can be met. But if you're only focused on, well, I'm not getting this, so I'm not giving him this, or I'm not getting this, so I'm not giving her this, you will always have a severed connection.
Yeah, I find the love language, conversation, and I tuned in this week on Thursday, and that was a really, really good show. And women highlighted their love languages, which is fine. I understand, and everybody's different, and you need to kind of learn your woman and who they are. But at the same token, as men have to learn women's love language and understand what they want and their needs, I feel that women need to understand that men have respect languages. Like women have love language, men have respect languages. And sort of those tend to kind of jump into the pool of, respect my judgment, respect my abilities, respect my communication, respect me in public, and respect my assumptions and decisions, right? How often do you hear women cross any of those things that I've just highlighted right now?
I think they cross it often because they don't get it laid out to them as clearly as this. And then the love language situation, there's so many books out there about it. You can even go online about it. So you can read on that a lot. So there's a lot of background on it. But every man is different. So I think he should be laying out what his respect rules are, just like our love language. Y'all need to tell us what's that for you? Because if we don't know what it is by default, then we're not knowing exactly when we're breaking the rules. Just like they were talking about Michelle Obama writing a book about their relationship. They said that she never should have done that because you keep your relationship private. Well, obviously that's not known between everybody because she wrote the book, Barack approved of the book, and it's out there. But the men are looking at it as she disrespected that man.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, how do we know what the rules are for us? Like y'all clearly know, like, oh, this is what love language is. This is what hers is. Oh, this is pretty clearly laid out. We don't have that. So we're just going off the cuff.
Fantasy Island, I think you have a really good point. There is a lot of resources and a lot of content out there that kind of highlights women's love languages and stuff like that. Let's be very honest. Men are just recently being heard on a larger platform globally. Our voice has been stifled and kind of put underneath the rug for a very long time. And sort of women's voice has always been uplifted and elevated. And sort of you're hearing a lot of these things now because a lot of men have not really had that same kind of opportunity to kind of voice them. Like we talk about these things amongst ourselves, right? but I don't think that y'all have had the opportunity to hear it like the way that we're talking about it now in mass.
And that's what I was going to say. When you guys say that our voices haven't been heard, they've been stifled. I think that kind of stems from men in a way that they do operate, because I think in the social aspect of things, y'all are taught not to talk, like as a female trait, you running your mouth too much, that kind of stuff. So I don't necessarily believe that it was maybe on a major like platform, but in the idea of communication and understanding that goes on in a relationship, you have total control over that. You know what I'm saying? And so when men have chosen not to express themselves or have that conversation with their girlfriend or their wives or what have you, it's not the woman that stifled it. That was a self-infliction, And so now I do think in a way that since you guys have had a broader voice, like on a YouTube space and things like that, that it has somewhat societal has given you guys permission to now be more open and have those conversations within your relationship.
All right.
I don't got no issue with a woman using love languages in a relationship to better optimize a connection or anything. Only time that becomes an issue is whenever your love languages don't get met, and then you start withholding things. Because love is supposed to be a charitable action. It's something you do without expecting anything in return. And the other person that you're loving is supposed to do the same. So if you're using that as a way to leverage something in return, then that's not really love. That's just a transactional relationship. Whenever you love somebody, it's a replica of how God loved us. God didn't force us to do his will. He loved us regardless, and we still had a choice to do his will. And anytime we decide to come back, he's always willing open arms to forgive us. We repent, and he'll love us no matter what. It's a sacrifice. You know what I'm saying? So whenever we saying, oh, if you don't fulfill my love languages, then I ain't gonna do these things. Because I always hear the story about love languages. But then what does that make you do for me? And if you said, if you fulfill my love languages, then I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z, and it's a transaction, you know what I'm saying? It's something that's gonna fall apart every time we have an issue, and now we gotta de-escalate and then try to fix it again. Like it's just gonna be a roller coaster.
But most men, when you're talking about the sex aspect, sorry. Go ahead, Chanel.
No, quickly. Maybe I see it as something different, but because I love my husband, I'm going to do whatever I can to make him happy. And he does the same for me. We don't really tend to say, I'm going to do this, but he needs to do this back or whatever. So if your mindset is already thinking, well, he didn't do this for me, so I'm not going to do that. If your mindset is already in that space, then you may need to look within and see and question, do you actually love this person? Are you giving this person your all? And then really quickly, I also wanted to say, since there are like 5 love languages, I would really love if men came together and, like Lewis was saying, did like respect.
All right, so we're going to talk about love bombing. Love bombing. People on the panel, do anybody have their own definition before we read the actual definition, according to Google, of what love bombing is? Feel free to speak as you choose.
So I think love bombing is when they're giving you all of the perks of actually organically falling in love before they even know you. So you're getting everything you ever wanted. They're treating you like a princess. They're making sure that there's nothing that you lack. They're feeding you. They're over complimenting you. All of these things are making it feel like, oh, it was love at first sight, when that's not realistic. So I think it's when in the very beginning of the relationship, before you've even developed into a relationship, they're feeding you, they're overinflating your ego and your confidence in them and what this relationship could be.
Okay, so they're just putting their resume up front. Okay. All right. Anybody else want to add their own take as far as what love bombing is?
I think it's like they're giving you everything that you ever wanted and asked for all at once, right at the beginning. So it's hard for you to think like, hey, is this a red flag, or do I actually want to be with this person? It's just all good all at once. And yeah, that's what I think it is.
I mean, essentially, it's a smokescreen to kind of distract you from the real intentions behind the mask, behind the representative, right? And sort of, it's just there to kind of distract you and not allow you to pay attention to their shortcomings, their sort of inconsistencies, and sort of like those are just ways to kind of create a bit of a smokescreen for you to kind of not really pay attention to the person's true intention. That's really, in a nutshell, what I believe it is.
Okay.
I've always seen it as a sign of desperation, specifically when you're dealing with somebody who's maybe out of your league and you're trying to do everything you can to kind of secure the deal, even though you actually don't feel that way about them. So you're pretty much giving them a lump sum of everything that you can offer without requiring them to earn those things or even qualify for the things that you want to give them, just because you don't have any confidence that you're going to be able to have any retention with them. So I usually see it happen on the level of people who don't actually qualify. They don't really match up with each other.
Okay, so can love bombing happen on both sides with men and women?
Yeah, you got men that's out of their league, dating women that they might not qualify. They might feel underqualified based on their socioeconomic status, and then it can be the other way around. And I've seen guys be a sucker for love. Like I've seen guys just pour into a woman. I'm like, no, this woman she's not even feeling you. She don't even act like she want to be around you. When you bring her around us, she don't even stand next to you for real. She don't even make eye contact with you. You be trying to grab her hand, she yank it away. Like she really ain't feeling with you, but you courting her around like she just this queen of your heart, like just soul match. And she's really not even into you. You can see it. And I'll be telling him, like, no, you might need to rethink that. But
So if I'm trying to understand this, right? And this is just to get clarification for the audience that's watching. I first heard this love bombing last week, and it was on Bridging the Gap show. And they spoke about it in a negative light. It had something to do with control and narcissists, some along those lines. And I'm hearing you guys give your take on it, and it seems to be negative. If a woman or a man was to ask you about yourself and like what you can do, what does our future look like, and they begin to describe that, would you guys say that is love bombing as well? Or is it different because that the person is prompted to answer the question? Because just let's dive a little bit deeper than what we already done, because it just seems to be surface level right now. If I'm on the outside looking in, I may not understand what love bombing is based off of you guys' opinions right now.
I mean,
you want me to go ahead and read the definition so we can have a better understanding?
Sure, go ahead. I know there's a definition to it, but go ahead.
Oh, I got you, big brother. Right on. You can tell a few jokes in between.
All right.
No, on the serious note, love bombing is a form of psychological and emotional abuse that involves a person going above and beyond for you in the efforts to manipulate you into a relationship with them. It looks different for every person, but it's usually involved in some form of flirting or praising, excessive flirting and praising. That's what the definition says.
Okay, so it's really based off somebody's intentions. If they have bad intentions in doing it and saying it in hopes of getting you, and then they become a different person, that would be considered love bombing. But if somebody is just talking about themselves, letting the other person know what they bring to their table, then it's not necessarily love bombing. Okay.
All right, so you could look at it as if somebody is just really trying to be over the top with it. You know what I'm saying? And you can really translate anything bad, anything that's not true and genuine, that has actual honest intention, can be considered bad. So like if you really don't love this person and you're really not trying to connect with them on a committed level, that can be considered bad. Like I would look at it as an example as Young Miami could be, because I consider her love bombing P. Diddy. You know, she's over aggressive, she's over excessive with him. I don't know if she's doing that now, but she's just putting herself as she's forcing herself onto him. You know what I'm saying? Even though he's not reciprocating the same type of energy. You know what I'm saying? Like she's carrying herself publicly and privately, doing all these things that people would think like, well, damn, do P. Diddy love that? Like, he's not really showing that. So it's like, you can't force him to, you know what I'm saying? Even if you let him put what they call it, a golden shower, that don't matter. You know what I'm saying? Show of hands, anybody on the panel ever had a golden shower? Look at balancing codes. Yeah.
It's the total opposite of what's it called? Baptism. That's what it is.
Oh, good. So everybody know what it is.
My opinion
to that, Luis. Oh, that's gross.
So people who love bomb, they're just putting their best foot forward, hoping that the person doesn't see who they truly are. So they do, all these excessive things, over compliment you, give all these gifts, so it's pretty much just to, like Louis said, to put a filter over who you truly are. So is that what I'm hearing?
And it's not even that that's who they like. It's not that they're giving their best version of themselves. They're just giving what they know women usually want. So it's not even who they'll end up being. If you're a good woman and he's good to you, y'all are in a happy relationship, it doesn't even mean that he's going to be this or she is going to be this person when y'all are actually in a relationship. They're just giving like the textbook things. He takes care of me. He compliments me all the time. He tells me I'm the most perfect woman he's ever met in his life. He says I'm going to be his wife. He talked about these things like, well, this sounds really good, but that's just the things that they know women like to hear, what would dream about hearing.
So they don't truly believe that they just
reading the 5 love language books and giving you all 5 love languages on a capacity where he can't sustain that if y'all were to go to the next level.
Well, I have a question then. Isn't that what both men and women do in general? I think, and the reason I say that is because when you first meet somebody that you think you're attracted to, everybody is putting their best foot forward. 9 times out of 10, even if it moves into something serious, women complain about it, men complain about it, is that once we get into the relationship, all of the things that everybody was doing when we first met in the very beginning, that they're no longer maintaining and keeping up in the relationship. So in that regard, are we all love bombing?
But I would think that the goal,
in some regard, yeah.
I would think that the goal with love bombing is to get something like a relationship or control over the person, versus when you're just putting your best representative forward, you're just trying to represent yourself well so you can possibly go on another date or get a relationship, but not necessarily control over the person. But I don't know. I don't know if dating
but
today
isn't that what manipulation is? That's exactly manipulation.
Like if you're saying these things on the front end and you deliver on it, you're the stand-up guy, you made all these promises and you live up to it, then I don't think there's no complaints and no issues. I think people do not see you being a person that you were in the beginning or who you say you was, then I think that's when you want to further investigate what is going on. Are you a fraud? Are you love bombing? Are you a fake? So I just think that if you put something out there on the front end, then you need to make sure that you are consistent throughout the relationship. And that's just on men and women. I think you just got to be consistent in who you present yourself to be.
Yeah. So like once you get that person, y'all in a relationship, and then afterwards you start telling like the things you used to compliment her about her, like, oh, I love how you dress. Now you're saying, oh, that looks terrible. Oh, I don't like your makeup like that. So is that like the love bombing, or am I off?
I'm gonna go ahead and play this clip.
Okay.
And this is I think somebody called in. I was asking this woman for some advice, and it had something to do with love bombing. So we'll hear her perspective, her take on it. Maybe it might add some clarity, maybe not. After the clip, I would like to get balance and put on this. So let me go ahead and play the clip.
Like if a guy on first convo says, I'm your future husband, no, he's flirting. I would not take this as one of those, this is love bombing, he's a narcissist. Like people love to jump and say that. It can be flirtation. I'm going to be your husband. I'm going to be your this. You're going to fall in love with me. It's cute. It's flirty. Roll with it, right? And then my response would be, well, let's see. Let's see if you got what it takes. We flirt, we smile, we laugh, we open up, all right? So do not be concerned and think that this is love bombing. He's not whisking you away to the Swiss Alps. He's being flirtatious. Okay, so don't worry about it.
All right, so kind of similar to what we were saying. Bounce, what are your thoughts about love bombing?
Love bombing is a trait of a narcissist. That's where the term came from. So a narcissistic personality disorder, which is an actual personality disorder that you have to be diagnosed with. And you have to have at least 3 or 4 of the traits. Love bombing is just one of those. So that in itself is not enough to say somebody's a narcissist, but it is a strong indicator that a person is very manipulative. And you should be cautious about it, actually. I think you actually should be very cautious about it, because that's like the number one way that I think men and women try to manipulate you when they first meet you. They tell you what you want to hear. It sounds good. You know, they call it making love to your ears. It sounds great. And I mean, if they could get inside your mind, then they have you. And that's the goal of a lot of manipulative people, to get your mind first. And then once they have you, they plan on mistreating you and basically making you their slave. So, I mean, it's something you should watch out for. But again, you have to have at least 3 to 4 of the traits, not just love bombing by itself. So that's really all I have to say about it.
I would think that the.
Well, can I make something? I say something next.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You already started. Go ahead. I'm patient.
I was just gonna say, I don't know if anyone has seen the Tinder Swindler, but I would consider that guy to be a love bombing, or like what you can see an example of love bombing. He really put it on those women. Well, maybe physically too, but he really put it on them like strong. So they were like, oh my gosh, yeah, he flew, just like her example in the video, flew them out to the Swiss Alps and did all of these things. So these women were like, this guy's in love with me. So I think that is a good example of what love bombing looks like.
I like to kind of challenge Balance's perspective for a moment, because we tend to kind of look at the negative connotation towards love bombing and say that it's manipulative and stuff like that, right? Which I could understand how it shows up in, you know, Janelle brought a great example in the Tinder Swindler. But what about people, specifically men, who are just bad with women, who just are not really socially calibrated, just don't know how to kind of navigate that kind of space, and is really getting out there, and they're trying to do all the right things, you know, trying to be chivalrous, trying to show up in a particular type of way. Would you equate that same thing of that man who has intentions, but does not really know how to do a good job of reading the room, you know, how to set the pace and the tone, just trying to get himself ahead, right, to seem good, but it's not really coming from a manipulative or narcissistic trait?
Then I wouldn't consider that love bombing. I think the idea behind love bombing is the intent of manipulation.
I didn't know we had a new balance on the audience.
So okay, so if his intent is to really have the relationship, like I really like this girl, and he's using the love bombing, I guess in a sense, as a guide, because he really, you know, may not have the confidence, or don't know, and these are the things that he's like, okay, I know women like this, let me do this, but his intent is to really be in a relationship with this woman because he really likes her. I think that's very different than doing all of these things for the purposes of getting in a relationship so I can have this woman do everything that I want her to do for me.
But how does one distinguish one from the other? That is really the underlying question, is how does that person distinguish one from the other? One from being a narcissist and the other one from just doing a little bit too much, but still have good intentions. How does people, you know, separate the two?
Your actions have to match your words. Like, it's not, I mean, we're making it more complicated than it is. A narcissist is not going to be consistent for a long period of time. Their true colors are going to come out. Their actions are not going to meet their words. Matter of fact, they're going to do the opposite of everything they said. They're going to lie. You're going to catch them in lies. They're going to try to make it seem like you're crazy. They're going to do gaslighting. It's a lot of things that where their actions will never match their words. besides the first 90 days you met them. So that's the quick and easy way to figure that out.
Okay, my perspective now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you passport bros, man. I don't have no problem with you guys. I understand right now. Listen to all this bullshit I'm hearing right now, because you don't stand a goddamn chance with these Western ladies. You can't be nice. You can't be kind. You can't be complimentary. Or you're gonna get called a narcissist. You're gonna get called love bomb, which had to be some bitter ass bulldagger who came up with that goddamn term anyway. I just don't understand. You don't stand a chance. You're nice to a woman because that's what they want. You want to be nice to them, encourage them, uplift them, praise them, you put them on a pedestal. That's what they want. Feel like you're the one and the only one. They want all that. But then when you do it too much, you're love bombing me. Or I'm gonna find a way. This guy's too perfect. I've seen y'all ladies do it before. This guy's too perfect. He can't be what he's saying he is. He can't be. So I'm gonna find a way to fuck it up. And that's what I'm gonna do. Because no, he can't be this good. He can't be this nice. He can't meet everything he says, even though he's walking it and talking it. Now, what's the time limit? I wonder, is it 90 days? So if he does this, compliment you for 90 days. Show he's doing it with his action for 90 days, but you're still gonna accuse him of being a love bomber. This is some bullshit, man. What are we supposed to do?
Be
Is this part of the Me Too movement too?
That's great.
That's what I need to know. Is this part of the Me Too movement too? Because now men can't even flirt with you at work, can't give you compliments at work, because if you do, you're considered harassing them. If I look at you longer than 3 seconds, I better look up, or look down, and look away. Or that's considered harassment. What the fuck are we supposed to do?
I do want to say this. I think Hink is making a fair point, because there are some people that may look, it may happen like that, right? And usually typically because of trauma, bad experiences. So if a man or woman has a bad experience in their relationship, they have a tendency to have their guard up within the next, and probably for the rest of their life, until they recognize it or either get some correction from speaking with somebody or something from a third party outsource or something like that. So if you are questioning someone, if they're love bombing, if they're not for real, not serious, what are some of the things that we can do to at least try to figure it out and narrow it down in our opinions? Because what we say right now is just our perspectives on it. But what do you guys think are some things that we can do?
I think the key thing is what Balance was saying, making sure that their words are matching up with their actions. So you have to pay attention. A lot of people want love to be easy, love to fall into it. We just fell into love and it's been perfect forever. And we never had any arguments, and that's not real. So realistically, you have to make sure their words, as wonderful as they sound, are matching up with their actions. And that's only something you can do if you're actually paying attention to them. Don't get stigmatized. Don't let them make love to your ears. Pay attention to what they are doing to you. And at the end of the day, you're supposed to be treating people how they're showing you that they need to be treated. So if they're not showing you that this is the type of man that you want to be with, it doesn't matter what he's saying. If he's not showing it to you, you gotta leave, in my opinion.
Anybody else?
I was just gonna say something that popped into my head, and I know we said men and women both can love bomb, but I guess for me, I know I have I can see it from a woman's perspective a lot better because I'm a woman, and so my example is going to be more so from that perspective. But if we're saying it's kind of like what Hank was saying. My thing is, how do you determine if it's love bombing when we hear guys say it all the time, like when they're talking, their end goal is to always, get the box. So in that regard, if that is the guy's intent, which a lot of times, especially, the younger you are, that is most men's intent. Would that be considered love bombing because they are saying things to get them closer to their end goal, which is to have sex with you?
Well, go ahead. Somebody else want to speak on it?
I'll speak on it. So you're saying the guys are love bombing with the goal of having sex with you, right?
Well, yeah, I'm trying to clarify, would that be considered love bombing? Because if the idea behind love bombing is to manipulate in order to get what you want,
It's
would that
possible.
be considered love bombing?
It could be possible, but the thing is it can't be carried through unless you actually open your legs. So if you open your legs due to him flourishing you with gifts and stuff, then what does it matter? You don't have any requirements, you don't have any standards for yourself. So how could you have it? How could you care if somebody's being deceitful by loving bombing when you're deceiving yourself, your body?
Well, no, well, that's my point. With love bombing, they're going to do all of the things that you set as a standard, right?
So if you said standard in marriage, if you said standard, the standard to get to his goal of sex, if you set the standard, hey, look, you got to be committed to me long term, and what does it matter?
So are you saying only standard, it should be before you get the box, we're going to get married?
All I'm saying is a woman shouldn't be concerned about love bombing if she have a standard that require him to actually live up to what he's trying to do, that forces him to get into a commitment, to force him to validate why he's giving you all these things. If she has a standard, you gave me a ring, you gave me marriage, shit, mom me all you want.
I think that the thing with it is when you're trying to decide if you're going to be in a relationship with somebody, you go based off of what they're showing you and what they're telling you. But we're at the point where I think we're fearing more people are narcissists than they are. I just feel like most people aren't love bombing. Most people aren't narcissists. So we shouldn't have this, oh my God, the boogeyman is there. He's going to come and get me. It's really not going to happen most likely. If he's showing you who he is, that's just who he is. These guys are not trying to do these mental gymnastics to try to trick these women. So we don't really have to be like on the lookout for the narcissist that's doing the most and trying to manipulate us as much as we have to vet the men that are actually in our spaces and make sure that we're compatible. I think that's where our focus should be, because I don't think we're experiencing love bombing at mass, or at least I haven't heard women saying that.
Also, isn't it like less than 8% of the population that's a narcissist or have been diagnosed as narcissists? So I'm curious to know, where are people all congregating at that they're running into all these collectively narcissist people? Let's start there. Like, where are you finding these people? And maybe you should stop avoiding those places, because that seems to be where everybody is congregating at, and that's where you're finding 8% of the entire population, right? Like, it just can't be that. I think that people are just too quick to throw the word out as opposed to really going.
Yeah, people have this ability to diagnose people. It just amazes me.
Oh man, everybody's a certified doctor nowadays.
Yeah, like I want to say, I think Bruiser made a good point as far as standards, and it was a good response to mistaking. But I think men should have standards as well. I think that's not nothing that we really teach, as men should have standards before they are allowing certain women to come around them, because people have energy, men and women. So many people are so quick to say, this person is my friend, and it's like, you got to be careful who you call a friend, who you call family. You have to let them, if you wait long enough, or if you don't have to be so much in a rush to adopt that friendship or to adopt their relationship. If you wait long enough, sometimes there will be some telltale signs. And if you have standards, then we talked about integrity, right? Which is basically like your standards. If you have that put in place and you don't go against that, once you see the telltale signs, then you're already going the other way. But people are so easily to they don't have standards. I don't even know how you can say you have standards when you allow something to happen. Now, do people make mistakes? Yes, they make mistakes, and I think you should learn from it. I think nobody is perfect. If you're into a relationship thinking that you're not going to have a disagreement, or it's going to be this honeymoon phase for the rest of your lives, then I think that you are misinformed. There are going to be some things that come up, and the real challenges is how many things you're able to overcome and get through. I think that's going to tell the strength of your relationship, that no matter what happens, we'll be able to solve and figure it out, which I don't think a lot of people are able to do that. It becomes a challenge. And sometimes people are challenged in life. They want to go the other way.
Miss Taken posted a really good question that I was actually thinking about. What are men's standards? Because I literally, this is what I hear men say is she have to have this voluptuous butt, this slim waist, and in good hair. I've never heard like substantial, like good quality standards a woman should have outside of physical. So I am literally curious to know what those standards are.
I'm gonna say the first thing to me is common sense. I think a woman has to have common sense. I think certain things, and even if they don't know, they should be like teachable, right? If you tell them like, look, you don't want to do this, maybe they are a little bit naive, maybe they grew up in the suburbs, maybe they haven't had the exposure. Because I think that we all don't realize how much we all grew up in different environments. Some people are street smart, and some guys not. It's a bonus, it's a plus, right? Because the reality we live in is that the streets are everywhere, even when you don't want them to be. So understanding what goes on is a form of protection for your family. Knowing what to do and how to respond, knowing when to be able to respond right away. These are all critical skills that I think every man should have. So common sense. If she don't know and you tell her and you explain why, and I'm only speaking from a man's perspective because that's when I only dealt with women, so can't say any other thing. But I think that if she gets it, it's like, okay, I can turn my head and I can go work on some other things. I can do this and I don't have to worry about that because she knows that when that situation comes up again, or if it comes up just based off of her previous knowledge, that she know how to do and she know what to do. Like I think men, it's so stressful to have to worry about a woman going out doing something that she's not supposed to be doing. But if she has common sense, she respects the relationship, then you ain't nothing to really worry about. The only thing you worried about is if men are being too aggressive, trying to force her to do things that she don't want to do. But being able to have common sense in the business, like if you put $5,000 in the house account, whatever, you put $5,000 in the house account, and she has access to it. Her knowing not to go spend that money, that's just common sense. You got some people that are sitting there just spend, oh, I just wanted that. That's something I can't do. You already know we got these things lined up. You already know we're trying to close down on this property, and you steady spending money out the account. Like that's not common sense. So, no, that's my thoughts.
Well, I mean, our golden core, you never came to the basement, it's obvious. And that's okay. You're more than welcome. You're invited. Because I have talked about standards and the standards that I have. One of them is one pot. That's one of my standards. Respect. You got to be respectful and you got to be financially literate. You got to be financially literate. Those are three of my standards that I don't move off of.
And just so y'all know, if I say some bullshit, let me know. I feel like y'all just agree with everything I say. This, I don't know if y'all gaslighting me or what, but if I say some effed up shit,
love
man,
bombing.
We love be like, man, that shit was trash. That shit was terrible.
We love bombing you, JR. That's what we're doing.
Well, it's good to know you guys have standards outside of the physical. So I'm definitely impressed.
But there's nothing wrong with physical standards, right? I'm not a fan of the weave, the wigs, the eyelashes, them long ass nails, and all that makeup. There's nothing wrong with those physical standards. I'm not a fan of that shit. I will not see or date a woman or interact with a woman looking for a serious relationship with a woman with those type things. It's just not my thing. But there's nothing wrong with that standard. But again, the three standards I just listed to you, those ones I would not move on. Not one bit.
The standards I have don't exclude physical standards. So sorry to break your bubble, but standards I have most definitely include having some type of physical attraction, some type of health, care for your body. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. There's men out there that don't care, but I'm one of the guys that care. I care about my body, and I think a woman should care about her body.
But if she was, beautiful head to toe, but she wasn't financially, literate, or she wasn't submissive, but had the willingness to be those things, would you be okay with,
Is that question for me or Bruiser?
Anyone, any male?
If you're if you don't have financial, but you're willing to learn, then I could deal with you. But you got to be willing to learn. Mm-hmm. And you'll do it because you have respect for me. That's when that respect aspect could come in. You have respect enough for me that I will learn for this. And if I want to be with Hink, if I want to love bomb her with gifts of an engagement ring, right? Because that's what you're doing when you offer engagement. You're manipulating her with a ring. But I'm gonna say off for that. If you're willing to get those lessons, I'm good with that. And matter of fact, we can go together. We do online class together. Because maybe some things I forgot about or that I need to refresh the course on. So we can go through it together. In the name of love. Let's do it.
I've always preferred a woman who had a semi-empty cup, not a cup that's already filled. A woman who's impressionable. So if she already had these things where she's fixed on, her mind's already set, she's been preconditioned from somebody else, not me. And if it was her father, then I would like to have a conversation with her father so I can get an understanding of what kind of work I gotta. Huh?
No, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you, brother. Sorry.
Yeah, so if I meet her father, like I met my wife's father, then I was able to understand, why she had this mindset or these principles. So I prefer a woman who's open to learn and a woman who's already fixed in her ways. Because then I gotta try to tear down her beliefs or her attitude to try to mold her into a suitable wife for me. Because she can be a suitable wife for somebody else or the person that she used to be with, but not for me. You know what I'm saying? Her tendencies and all that stuff is aligned with her previous relationship, not me. So it's gonna be a little work. That's why it's kind of hard that's why we frown upon women having multiple partners. You know what I'm saying? And I think they call it trauma bonding. So you have this memory, you have this fixed memory of how you act, your preferences, your pet peeves, your deal breakers, your sexual positions, your fetishes, and all that stuff. It can come from me. I have to come and try to remold you to see if you can fit in my program, see how we can have a chemistry. Your chemistry is already bent to somebody else, to another man. So if any woman comes into the picture and saying, "Hey, I'm willing to learn these things," I don't know these things. That's to me, that's a blessing, because now I can build you from the ground up. We can work together, and you'll appreciate it. We'll both appreciate it because we've seen your growth. You know what I'm saying? I was able to witness your growth, versus just accepting your growth that another man built. You know what I'm saying?
So Bruce, let me ask you this: since you want this woman to be a piece of clay, what's wrong with getting you a plus size woman so you can mold her?
That's fine. Listen, like I said, it's totally fine if she's plus size and she's willing to work. I got nothing against a woman who's already heavy or voluptuous that's willing to cut down and mold into the woman. If she's saying, "Look, I want to be what you want me to be," and I'm like, "Look, I want to be what you want me to be. What can I do? I want you to do the X, Y, and Z. Okay, can you do X, Y, and Z?" And she's willing to do that, and we want to work together.
You gonna take that fat chick and you gonna see her through?
Yeah, I'm gonna be there right there night and day with her in the gym, making sure she get into the shape she want, make sure she as healthy as she want, making she can wear all the dresses she always aspired to want to wear.
I know that's right.
I'm the guy for it. As long as you willing to work.
I was just gonna say one thing about Bruce. I think he doing a slight troll right now.
Yes, that's like that right there, JR.
I don't think he would talk to her, but I think that if she got like that, let's just say through pregnancy or something like that, but she was willing to put the work back in to get down to that size, and I think that he would stick around then. I don't think he would. That's what he would go for, right?
Exactly.
But it is.
That is not honest. I don't believe you at all. You're not going to just go find, because there's plenty of fat women out there. So you would be married by now.
I heard him on too many shows.
Gotta have to the
finish.
Oh, my bad.
Like, I think what Bruiser said, there's a lot of power in what he's saying, because at least he's being honest. So when it comes to like the physical attraction part of it, if she understands that that's one of his standards, then she's going to try to maintain it. So you don't have to worry about him wanting to look elsewhere because she's keeping herself together. And he's also is saying that he's setting an example. So he's not just telling her to do something, but he's also being an example of how he wants things to look when it comes to look wise. So I think that is good. It also is a good point as well, because I think a lot of people are not honest about what their standards are. So if there are some things that happen within a relationship and it was one of your standards, a lot of times people don't speak up on it. And so what they would begin to do is start finding other things to complain about.
I was gonna ask Bruce. It was something that stood out to me that he said about, like, you know, because a woman may have other experiences with men, and then they get in a relationship, and he has to break all of that down to then mold her into whoever he wants her to be for him. I guess my question is, I kind of feel like I think that's what happens when both people come together, because a lot of times you end up developing your standards or developing your boundaries based on previous experiences that you've had with other people. So it's kind of like, you know, all right, well, I know this is something that I don't like. So going forward, this is going to be a boundary for me. You know, and so I guess my question is that how does that work as a man? And when you're saying I'm going to make her into what I need to be, which means that the reason you've decided the things that you want in that woman was based on previous experiences that you've had with other women. So are you kind of molding her into the woman based on a past, you know, past experiences that you've had with other women? Because I know as a woman, that would make me feel some kind of way if you're trying to make me into a replica of some other woman that you were with, that you like that aspect of who she is, which is ultimately kind of what you're saying, you know, that she's trying to do to you. So,
this is where the understanding of submission comes in, and it could sound like it's unfair, but if a woman is submitting to a man, she's to fit in his system, regardless if his system is based on his fine tuning and trial and error that he had in relationships, or something completely different, you know what I'm saying, for the woman that you are. But I think we're intelligent enough to know that you might not be able to live up to the expectations of the previous woman, or you might have limitations, or you may even be better, or you may shed light on something that we never had. But when it's all said and done, you are submitting to a man. A man is actually sacrificing his life, sacrificing everything for you to make sure the well-being of you and the children flourish. So it's a form of submission. And if you're going to submit to a man, he has to be able to be comfortable and willing to deal with you on a level to where he can, you know what I'm saying? He got to be, okay, like if I'm going to sacrifice my life and everything I have, I'm going to build it around this woman, she's got to be something that I prefer. You know what I'm saying? It's got to align to my preferences and my standards. But if it was the other way around, if the man was submitting to you, then you'll be in control of that. You know what I'm saying? You'll be able to remold this dude into what you want, but it's not like that. You know what I'm saying? But to each his own. You know, a lot of people have like this even role or these roles where it's not really a masculine and feminine role. You know, both are like just playing that part, or what do they call it, a partnership, to where there's nobody's the dominant, nobody's the leader. That's not how I, operate. And there's no knock on nobody else, but I just find it really difficult to do it that way. So I think it makes sense for a woman to be able to tear down anything that she learned or anything that she been predisposed to from the previous man, and try to see, well, okay, do you like these things? And if you happen to like those things, then good, GG, you know what I'm saying? But oftentimes a man want to be able to look at, a piece, an artifact, and be like, I designed this, this came from me. This is my blueprint. I got my fingerprint on this. All the things she like and all the things she do is because of her, reaction to me. You know what I'm saying? What are the things that, the time we spent developing this, you know what I'm saying? We developed each other. You know what I'm saying? So when I get in the bedroom, it's like, oh, I like it like that. It's because something that I put on her, not because of Jody from 3 years ago put on you. You know what I'm saying? I want you to hit it like Jody hit it. Nah, man, fuck that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'll say this. A man will mold a woman into something that she'll come to love, respect and admire. A woman trying to mold a man into something that she wants will create something that she'll end up despising in near time future, right? I think that we understand where each other's sort of inherent value comes in. And to Bruce's point, I mean, I think he laid it out pretty well. I'm just adding that extra antidote, but I think that one of the most important parts that we tend to kind of sometimes oversee, because I think it becomes more of a like, who's trying to control who. But if you chose that person to be your partner, your fiance, your wife, right? There's a level of validity that you have in them. There's a level of confidence that they have to allow them to guide you into the best situation for your relationship and for your own personal development as well. So there's something to be said about that.
Well, I think that's what I was getting at with the fact of, if you get with a person and then your whole goal is to break them down, to build them into somebody else that you want them to be for you, then I think that then that's not your person. I think the person that you meet that comes with all of those different, the qualities or standards that you would want, then that's the person you should look for from the very beginning, because then it's not a whole bunch of breaking down, because they already have those basic qualities that you want. Now, yes, there's going to be some adjustments to, you know, for both on each side when you're trying to be in relation with somebody else. Like, no, I don't like spicy food. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just little tweaking that you may need to do. But when I hear things like, you know, I gotta, you know, break the person down, or vice versa, even if it's a woman trying to change a man, because we have a tendency to do that as well. Like, we might be attracted to the man, but then they may not have all of the qualities and stuff that we desire. But in our mind, we're like, all right, I can, you know, I could change him, you know. So I think it, you know, both people do that. But my point is that it should not be a lot of molding, you know, a person into the person you want them to become.
Where does your desire come? Like, what does that woman desire come from?
Like what I said, based on previous experience. It could be previous experiences or the way she grew up. She may have had her father in her life, so now that is the standard for her. So if you don't meet those standards, then I don't think she should even deal with you. Vice versa. You shouldn't deal with a woman that don't come with those basic standards that you're looking for. Change and growth is inevitable. But when you're literally trying to change the person to make them into what you want them to be, then that's not your person. That's just my opinion.
Well, you know, people use attraction in a way to where, you know, they remind them of loved ones, you know, such as parents, exes. So subconsciously, you know, you have hormones that are activated. You know, they're activated because the person has triggered some kind of similarities. You know, you ever wonder why some people go out and date somebody and you see them with a new girl and she almost looked like the ex, or, you know, she's the same skin tone, similar body type. You know what I'm saying? It's an attraction that you're used to, and you want to try to see that in the other person. So I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying.
Is wanting ambition in a partner dangerous? Is wanting ambition in a partner dangerous? Let me go ahead and play this clip for you guys.
This man that's gonna work in the office till 10 p.m. and never come home and help you with them kids, but you're gonna have the audacity to complain when you're the only person taking care of them kids. But you want ambition, right? And y'all got that big, beautiful house out in Long Island, and you alone and sad because he's at work because he got ambition. Right? Now, I'm done told y'all, I'm a West Indian woman, so I appreciate someone who works hard, right? That's a value of mine. However, I'm very careful about the term ambition or ambitious, because many times they're going to prioritize that vision that they have for themselves and they had before you came over you and them kids. So we got to be real careful about that term. Hardworking, a provider, I appreciate that. But the ambitious part, the women say they want it until that man does not show up for them and does not show up in their home, and then that's a struggle bus.
Is wanting ambition in a partner dangerous?
Social
Go ahead.
media is dangerous because they exaggerate everything. It's so annoying to me. Like, it's always one extreme or the other. Can't we just have balance with things? Like, what woman wants a man who's not ambitious? What are we talking about? This is really weird that social media turns it into this extreme versus this extreme. No, get you a man who has the balance. Like, it's common sense. And this is why I'm like, is this elementary school? We know this is common sense. You don't want somebody that's married to their work, but you don't want somebody that's just going to be at home either. You want an ambitious man, yes, but a man who loves his family and can balance both. We all want that. And men want, all right, that's it.
I think that the most ambitious a man is going to be is when he's trying to build. And that's why I always preferred the guys to be older, because in that grind stage, they don't really have time for you like you want. They have to focus on their goals so they can get to a position that they're trying to get to take care of a family. So I know younger guys hate this, but I advocate for dating older men because they aren't grinding, making sure they're the last one in the office, making sure they do all these extra things. They usually have already done that work, put that work forward. They have the name in their company and they're good, or in their job role, if they've transitioned or whatever. Even when they transition, they make sure they step up. So they have that security that they don't have when they're the intern doing everything they tell them to do, being the bitch boy. Well, sorry, not being the, sorry, excuse my language,
The gopher.
being their do boy, whenever they need something done and everybody's piling the work on you. That's because you're new. That's what young guys have to go through. But the older guys, they don't have to go through that. So I know, like, they don't like to hear this, but I tell women to date the men that have already gone through their race stage.
Yeah, I agree with that, because my husband, we're 5 years apart. And before meeting my husband, I was dealing with guys in my age range and they weren't ready. They were, in the build stage. So they weren't ambitious guys. So I was always telling them, like, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that. So that's where I feel like it's dangerous, because you have a certain expectation now for this person and they're not living up to that. So by finding a, person in your range, in your bracket, you're not having to say, you need to be ambitious, you need to do this because, I have kids now, we have kids now, we need to, take care of these certain things. So the danger comes in is when you have this certain expectation for this person and they're not living up to it. So that's what I wanted to throw in there.
But you can see how that could be dangerous too, right?
Not living up to the expectation?
No, telling women to date older men. That
why is that
dangerous? Telling them to date men that's already at the finish line.
Not even my husband wasn't at the finish line. We actually built together. I was 22 and he was 27. And
fantasy girls fantasy.
Oh, I thought you were talking about me.
I'm not talking about the finish line.
Oh, okay.
The beginning stages is when you're working the hardest. The middle, you're coasting. The finish, you're already a foot out the door. So I'm talking about getting them in the middle stage after my boyfriend was 30 when I met, was 35 when I met him, and now he's 38. He's turning 38. So he's got years on me. And when he started out, he was grinding. He was in the military. He's now a contractor and he's slowed down significantly. He works from home now. He doesn't have to go to work and he makes significantly more than me. So I can't tell women not to do what I'm doing, and it's working.
What is the purpose of telling young women to date older men?
So he'll have the time for you.
Because
get to know each other. You're not wasting those years.
He'll be already established. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, he'll be established. He won't be he jumped from job to job. He's still trying to figure out what he's trying to do. That's not what you're going to be dealing with an older guy.
So the dangerous part to that is if you tell a young woman, hey, date an older man or date an established man, a lot of these women don't qualify for established man.
Get your qualifications up.
So I'm saying that's a dangerous thing. You got to be able to meet a certain criteria, because a lot of these men that established, they want you to be like this. They want you to be able to cook. They want you to be able to. A lot of women ain't trying to do that.
They obviously don't want a man. They don't want that man then.
And then one of y'all said I don't know if one of y'all said y'all had love language. Y'all had 5 love languages. What if y'all 5 love languages? Quality time. If your love language is quality time and you say you want an ambitious man, how's that gonna work out?
Wait.
Definitely tough, but it can happen. My husband is an ambitious man. I didn't know 5 years difference was considered dating much older. I always thought it was like 10 and 20 years, but my husband and I were 4 years apart. He's older than me. When he was up for his promotion, that was like the hardest time because he had so much stuff he had to do in the office, and I had to make sure that I held things down. I couldn't like beg to see him so much, like as much as I normally do, but it does take a lot of balance. I know that's the key word for today, but it does take a lot to say, okay, you're super busy on these days. Let's map out some time on this specific day so we can have quality time. It's not always easy and it's not always possible, but if you want to have a healthy relationship, both sides are going to have to sacrifice something. That's just what it is. That's what love is about. That's what a relationship or marriage is about. If you're not that kind of woman to be put on the back burner sometimes, you probably shouldn't want an ambitious man because he's going to be too busy for you, and he's going to be doing it out of the name of love as well. He's going to be trying to provide for you and your family. And if you don't see it that way, if you don't see it as a way of love, you're going to be resentful and you're going to think that he's ignoring you. So I think it's very important for women to understand that.
And those women who don't lack appreciation. Anytime a woman complains about a man working, when he's actually working on moving the needle and trying to make progression for the household and his kids, and you got to complain about that, you lack appreciation.
You know,
I think they lack self-awareness too.
Huh?
I think they lack self-awareness too. They're not aware of what they actually need to be happy in a relationship. So they have the key things that society is telling them, but it's about what you need to feel fulfilled in your relationship. So you can't really go based off of, oh, this girl's husband's always working, but she seems happy. I'm going to expect that from my man, but I need attention. That doesn't make any sense.
That's an excuse. They aware, just like JR said, common sense. They know if this man going to work to build a living and a lifestyle for you and the kids, they know good and damn well by common sense that he gonna have to go to work. So they're pretty much aware. They just use that as excuse. They just don't appreciate it. It's a selfish mindset. They lack selflessness.
Well, I have a question.
They're thinking about, oh, I want to be held. I don't care if you got to go work extra hours. I want to be held. I want to be caressed. I want to be courted. I want to be dated.
I want to say this before mistaken. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Bruce. Go ahead. I was just trying to get it in before mistaken. Yeah, and I just want to say this too, is that I don't think a lot of women understand like what it takes, how much hard work it takes to actually be an entrepreneur. You know, it's a difference when you go to do a 9 to 5, you just go to work and you come home. When you don't have anything else to turn to, and your money, the lifestyle that you guys live depends on you doing whatever work you're doing, then you're on call 24/7. You're on call 24/7. And I think a lot of people need to understand that. And I speak to men, because I think men should hold down the household, or either should be gravitating to do so to carry on much of the burden. But it's tough, man. It's like nonstop. And the best thing that you can do to support that man is to support that man. I'm not saying that you got to be a slave, but you got to be a little more. You got to understand the work that needs to be done. Also understand how much stress goes in it. And maybe some days it's kind of hard to tell somebody to go to sleep and to make sleep a priority when you have so much that falls on you. I think one of the goals is to, if you buy into it, right, or if you're a good planner as a man, I think you only want to do these things short term. So if I'm grinding right now, the purpose is so that within the next 5 years, we could be living our life, traveling, exploring, and waking up when you want to wake up.
And I think that is part of it. That's what I was going to say. I think there's a difference between when ambition becomes a form of neglect. And I think a lot of times, men will say, I'm doing this for the family. This is for the family. But what good is that when you're not even there with your family? So I think there is definitely a balance. Do I think men should have ambition? Absolutely. But I do think that at some point you have to figure out when is enough enough. Is there a specific goal? Like JR said, how let me just grind for these 5 years. Okay, so I have an end date. So I know, all right, let me figure out the things that I need to do within this time frame. But when you say I hit those 5 years, oh, now I'm gonna set this next goal. And I'm not saying you shouldn't, but if the goal is to be able to raise your family, be with your family, and most of your time is not with your family, I think that's a form of neglect. And I don't think men kind of understand. And it's not that the woman is being selfish, it's an expectation that you spend time with your family. And for most of us, a lot of time, both of us are working, for most couples, both couples are working. So if we're spending most of our time apart all day, then we get home and then you're still grinding to do something else. Where do we get that quality time? How do we bond? And if one person is feeling neglected, that's not going to be a strong, happy, healthy relationship. Unless you're a person that's okay with, not bonding with your partner and just the money is more important.
And a lot of times when they have that deadline.
Yeah, I like to say something. It seems clear that, women do live life on easy mode because, women don't understand what it takes to be attractive as a man. And the things that make a man attractive take time to acquire. And to address the topic, you never hear women they'll say they want an ambitious man, but you never hear women say, I want to build with an ambitious man. It's always, I want an ambitious man, but not, I want to build with an ambitious man. Because the intent seems to be to move in, not build. And sort of at that point, you got to really ask yourself, do you want to go through those formative years, seeing that man build and see that fruit in that time together? Or do you want the finished product? Do you want to wait at the finish line and have that finished product? Because I've seen dudes who have been at the top of their game and then they had to reset and they had to kind of rebuild. Businesses are successful, and then sometimes you hit the recession. There's a lot of businesses that did not survive COVID. This is not a business that did not survive the 08 crash, right? And what's coming ahead, who's to know who will survive that? So there's always a lot of restructuring to happen. And I think the conversations need to have is, in the event that something was to happen to our business or it does not sustain and the sacrifices need to be made, what are you willing to cut back on? What sacrifices are we willing to reset that we had going in order to keep this thing riding out? So I think those conversations people don't have. It's good when it's smooth sailing, but tough times don't last, but tough people always do.
So I feel like in the military, they experience this a lot. Like they go through the growing phase, they go through the multiple deployments, multiple field exercises, and the wives are there taking care of the house, being patient, waiting for his retirement date. But the thing that I see people break up when they're like, oh, they've been together for years, how could they get divorced? Is when it's finally coming to the time where she's waited and he's supposed to retire. And these men take the promotion instead of getting out like they promised their wives they would do. And you have no idea this type of animosity these women have for these men after they have waited and waited and waited, moved and moved and moved, taking care of the kids all through all of your deployments, only for you to come back now and say, well, they offered me this promotion. She don't give a damn. She don't want to hear it. And it's been over 20 years now because you're not getting out. So it's like, once you set that deadline, once you give her that, this is the date, you can't go back on that. So you have to be sure when you decide that I'm going to start slowing down for my family, and a lot of times women will get on board with that, but you can't be changing the date because it's just a letdown. They feel very disappointed. Like, I don't know if you're ever going to get out. I don't know if you're ever going to stop trying to reach the next promotion. They're always going to dangle it in your face. You're going to take it every time. Like, it just makes them feel like you're not really prioritizing ever being a family man, which is what they signed up for.
And they should be single.
Well, let me say this, because I haven't had a chance to talk yet, man. Again, I don't understand. I just don't understand, y'all ladies. Y'all want all of these things in a man. Us men got to be super Negroes. You got to fit all the bills, but you want this lavish house where you could be a stay-at-home mother and take care of your kids and homeschool your kids. But yet, in order for these things to get taken care of and paid for, that man got to go out there and grind. And he better be ambitious if you want him to be a six-figure dude. He's not going to be a six-figure dude and not ambitious. I don't know any unambitious person who's a six-figure. I don't. But for those guys, in order to be that, he's got to be ambitious. So what's the problem? You can't have it all. Even during his latter stage y'all talking about, he may be a manager, whatever company he's company, but guess what? He's always on call. So he can get that call 2 a.m. We got an issue down here. We need for you to come down. On the law firm, he might have to take the most high risk case, the big cases where I can't rely on my youngins, the young lawyers to handle this case. It's a high profile case. I got to be there. I got to be one to take this case. It may take me 6 months before this case is done. So what are y'all going to do then? Y'all going to complain? Well, my man's not there. My husband's not there. The kids need it. No.
But when are y'all ever satisfied?
When you get that direct deposit every other week, you're going to be happy then. You're going to be happy when you ain't got to go and worry about doing all these other things because you're taken care of, or you maybe have a nanny, or you have a cleaning service come through there maybe every other week. You're okay with that then. I just think what it is, you just want that man there so he can listen to you, so you can unload all your burdens, lay him down at his altar. And guys, guess what? When he comes home from them 12 to 16-hour days, he's not looking for conversation. He's looking for a hot meal and a place to lay his head because he's tired. He's worn down. He done put all his work in while you was at home taking care of the family, making sure they good. I was out there in them streets doing what I need to do to make sure my family has the money we need in order to do these things, to make sure we have groceries in our refrigerator, make sure our lights are on, our water is on, make sure you have them extra necessities. Oh, little Johnny needs braces. Okay, we got to make sure we get that. Okay, no problem. Her daughter, she wants to take music lessons. Cool, maybe some piano lessons. Cool. I got to make sure we have a music teacher who comes over here every other week in order to teach our daughter how to play the piano. Or they want to involve themselves in other activities. This shit ain't free. The lifestyle, the neighborhoods you live in, they're not free, depending on your state. This shit is not free. I have to go to work and pay for this because you don't want to go work with me. You're not about 50-50. You're about the man taking care of me. Cool, I'm going to do that. But you got to take the good as well as with the bad. And it may not be spending all of this quality time with you. But let me tell you what I will do. When we do have this quality time, I will make sure I turn my ringer off and I will focus on you. So don't take that time I'm taking off so you can go to the nail salon and go hang out with your girlfriends on girls trips when I'm taking the time off in order for us to be together as a family, right? Because this is what you wanted. This is what you require. This is what you ask of me.
I just want to know, when is it ever enough? Like, I get you men are so ambitious and you want to protect, provide for the family, but when is it ever enough?
When we can change our lifestyle to a moderate lifestyle for you ladies and y'all be okay with it.
When we retire and you no longer want to get a Birkin bag.
If we're able to move into that middle class home, then it's enough. But that's not what
y'all reach that and you still y'all reach that. You guys reach that and you still go. I swear.
I can't speak for all.
It's the truth. Okay.
I can't speak for
We'll pretend. We'll all pretend like
missing out on
doesn't happen.
Hold on. Like Tom Brady wife, if enough is enough. Man retired, she still won't file them divorce papers.
Some men are just not smart about it. like some men are smart about it. I think one of the goals is to have your money work for you. So when you invest, how your money work for you, then that way you don't gotta be there. So just still create more time. If you have to be there all the time, then are you really reaching your goal? Because now you still putting miles on you mentally. One of the things that I talked about at the railroad was that if you guys are putting so much wear and tear on your body every day, like I've seen guys that retired and then 2 years later we hear that they passed away. One of the things why some guys keep going is because if they don't go, then that's when they start to like shrink. They just look different. And I use my grandfather as an example. When he retired from the railroad, he went to go work for Enterprise and used to just bring the cars back and forth or whatever he was doing. But he had to do something because if he didn't stop moving, then he was going to just continue to get older and older at a fast rate. My grandfather was always moving, unlike my grandmother, well, my late grandmother, but he was always moving. And so you seen how my grandmother slowed down and my grandfather to this day, he still drives. He's like 82, 83, still driving, still playing cards, still doing things because he always kept moving. So I think it's important for a guy, some men to always have something to do. Because when you just sitting around not doing nothing, anybody, that's when you get lazy. Even when you try to walk, now you tore ligament because you've been sitting down so much within the past month, and now you can't even move around because you're not active. So
the crazy thing about it, when I got married, I didn't realize I was putting pressure on my husband just by saying the things that I wanted. And it wasn't even like crazy thing like a Birkin bag. It was just that I want this, this 2-story home. So he would like try to, try to get those things for us until I started seeing him like stressed out and like overly working. I'm like, babe, like we don't need any of that, like we're good. So I think one of the reasons is that, us as women, we can, put a lot of pressure on our men and, they're obviously trying to live up to that. So you may see them, doing things that will bring negligence to the family. So I did notice that and not even realizing it. That was just crazy. So now we're in a better place. I'm like, yes, like I need you here. Like, especially when you have kids, like everybody, all hands on deck. Like, I don't want to be a married woman feeling like I'm a single mom. So
Golden Court, you agree with me? Is that what you're saying? Are you coming to the dark side?
Oh, I guess so. I don't know.
Welcome.
I don't think a lot of women realize, just like you, Golden Court. I didn't know just saying, "Oh, I would like this." My man's light bulb went on. He's like, "Oh, right, gotta go get it." I didn't know that. I would just say it casually, like, "Oh, I want this." And now he's like working 8 extra hours. I did not know that at all.
Girl, my husband was trying to work 3 jobs.
Chanel, welcome to the dark side.
But the thing is,
that's something I learned probably first 6 months of my marriage. So I'm just like, okay, zip, because I don't want to do too much, especially unbeknownst. Like I want to make sure like I'm being realistic and not overstressing him. But here, I just wanted to ask a quick little question to the men. With all this working and working, which is a good thing, I'm not saying it's bad. Aren't you afraid of missing out on key moments in your family's life or legacy, your children? Isn't that something that you wonder about?
I don't see it as a problem because hopefully all of us got the opportunity to accrue vacation time or personal time. So take advantage of it. As long as it's something that you could schedule out, it could be taken care of. We do have off days again. Now if you just want to work on your off days and you just a selfish motherfucker. There's nothing I can do about you. You know what I'm saying? That's just what it is. But guys have vacation days. So most times we're off for the holidays, right? For Christmas and your Thanksgiving, Memorial Day and Labor Day. So you're off for those type of events. If there's some events coming up, like say your kids graduate or your graduation or whatever the case may be, a proms. I know prom season is about to come up. So your proms, your other ceremonies, the father and daughter's dance, they're always scheduled. So you can always schedule, take that time off if that's what you need to do. But like I said, again, it's all about balance. I'm just trying to figure out is joy and mistake ready to come to the dark side. You're more than welcome.
And then also people need to learn how to delegate. If it's one thing I've learned in the last year and a half is, being able to align with people that could help you kind of get things off your plate. So learn how to delegate to free up more time for you in your loved ones is very, very key.
Wealth is where history shows up in your wallet. Here's the clip.
Wealth is where history shows up in your wallet. So today, the average black college graduate has less wealth on average than the average white high school dropout. Makes no sense,
okay,
right?
Say that again.
Yes. So if you're the average white high school dropout, you are wealthier than the average black college graduate. So that's history showing up in your wallet, right? We're talking about wealth, not a paycheck. We are talking about your home equity, your stocks, your bonds, your inheritances. And that all dates back to that massive racial wealth divide that we have today, dates back to when most middle-class Americans' wealth began, which was in the New Deal era, coming out of the Depression. The progressive FDR government said, we want to commit to affordable housing and mass home ownership. And they created this massive system, this system of public subsidy, and they based it on the never substantiated assumption that black people would be too much of a credit risk. And so they commissioned maps of the entire country's largest cities and surveyed them down to the block level for their racial and ethnic character and said if there was a high Negro concentration, we're going to circle that with a red line and say banks do not lend here. And that really only ended in the 1970s. And it was quickly replaced by what people call reverse redlining, which is when those contiguous communities of lower wealth black communities were targeted with those high cost loans.
You're muted, JR.
Wealth is where history shows up in your wallet. I'm going to go ahead and go to Fantasy Island Girl. What are your thoughts about it? And then we can go around the panel, just speak if you guys have something to add on to it.
So I think it makes a lot of sense what you're putting your money into. You're hopefully getting a return on, and it'll show up in your investments and your art that you buy and your whatever, right? I think it's interesting when she was pointing out that the redlining and the reverse redlining situation, because then it's kind of highlighting the cards being stacked against the men when we're putting on these expectations of wealth on these black men. How realistic are those expectations with all these limitations that they're trying to get through?
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Chanel.
I think financial literacy needs to be well taught and well discussed in the Black community. I'm now learning about, stocks and all of those things, and it's a very interesting thing to learn about. And I think a lot of people our age and younger can really benefit from this, because there are people who are 50, 60 years old who worked a 9-to-5 who have $1 million portfolio. They didn't work, super big CEO jobs, but they have enough compound interest from their stocks where they can live comfortably with what they've accrued over time. And I don't think Black families in the same age range have that knowledge or have those assets. So I really do think financial literacy, learning about the stock market within our age group now and even younger, is very essential. Even within your own families, teaching your children about it, I think is very important.
I like to kind of give people a roadmap, especially when we're having these types of conversations, and what that looks like for people who are listening and always, inquiring to know what that looks like for them and their family, and sort of having those Friday night conversations about financial literacy, doing like a game board that is set up around saving. What does compound interest, right? And you make it into a game. You turn it into a puzzle. You have this mapped up on a wall where you put or highlight, okay, this is how much interest has accrued in the last 6 months, or this is how much we have saved, right? You need something tangible that you can see it happening, right? Because for seeing is believing for a lot of people. And sort of having those types of roadmaps and having those types of exercises and those types of conversations, and what does that look like for your children, and you setting those types of things. Remember the piggy bank? You used to have to fill it up with coins, dollars, or uncle gave you $100. Where's that going? Right? And sort of not so much the piggy bank, but also okay, we're going to put this much into this account because of this, and this is what's going to happen over time, right? Having those more deep level conversations about what this really looks like and what are these other financial vehicles to help you save for college, help you, start that business, help you, transition into your life. A lot of people don't have health insurance. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people don't even have estate planning. You know what I'm saying? They don't have life insurance, which is huge because, when uncle dies, everybody's scrambling around to try to do a GoFundMe, which I think is the modern day embarrassment, that you are unfortunately unable to structure and organize your life in a way where now you have put your family, friends, and loved ones in a deficit trying to run around and raise money for you to bury you, And I think that that's where the bar is at right now. And people need to have more collective conversations about what these things look like and how to grow your money and wealth.
I was going to say too.
So you saying they have to have fish dinners just to bury uncle?
Say that again.
They out there having fish dinners just to bury uncle?
Mm-hmm. It's not even fish dinners no more. You just post the link and you ask for money.
So you don't get nothing for it, huh? You can get a fish dinner, 2-piece or something. Damn.
I was going to say she's speaking truth, and that also go into the history, like even of the GI Bill and things like that, white families were able to utilize that, buy their homes. And that's where a lot of them were able to start with their financial wealth, where Black, men who served in the military as well was not able to access that to help start, have a jump start for their families as well. But I think now there's so much out there in terms of information, access to learn a lot of these things. But the problem with that is that, people who make it say, well, if I could do it, you could do it too, which may be true. But the problem is that you have to have the capacity to understand it. Like, I remember when all of this cryptocurrency came out, I'm like, all right, husband and I was talking about, but we were watching like videos, trying to understand that. And I almost understand that stuff. And it was like, you might as well have been speaking Spanish, because it was so over both of our heads and level of truly understanding how to do that. And so and even when you're speaking about investments, it's a lot to learn if you're coming from ground level. A lot of times people have other people that they know that can advise them, and then that's very helpful. But if you're in a situation where, let's say, you're first generation, nobody can give you that advice, and you're seeking that advice, and not all advice is good advice. So what happens in that situation? And it speaks to what Chanel was saying. It is about education. And I think, we had Hank had a conversation about the educational system on the basement not too long ago. And to me, that is part of it. I think, there should be a mandate. Like, the parents are running around, if you could see which parents are running around upset about kids, being taught about, homosexuality. And not that I disagree with that, but I don't see that same energy, especially from us, fighting about getting things changed in the school system that targets things like financial literacy before you graduate, so our kids can be on a path of closing that, wealth gap. But we'll fight about, I'm not going to say that stuff doesn't matter, but I think in a grand scheme of things, fighting for financial literacy as opposed to, I don't want these, books about African Americans in a library, you know what I'm saying, is far much greater. And I think as a collective, that's what we need to be fighting for in regards to education, because the education system isn't working for us. But if we try to fight to put things in place that will benefit us, then I think that's where we need to put our energy.
I also think Black people tend to not look into life insurance And life insurance can be a wealth setter. You could be the first generation to start off that wealth train with life insurance. And I think, I don't know why, I just never learned about it throughout my own family. I had to learn about it through outside sources. So I really think we should look into that as a Black community for our future generations.
Well, I know one of the things we talking about this, man. I always talk to my son ever since he was in high school. Every time he makes a mistake or does something well or does this, I always equate it back to finance and money. All right, man, you did something wrong. You made a bad investment. Why do you think a bad investment? Why do you think it is bad? And I quiz him on it. Even when I'm getting on him or encourage him, uplift, man, that was a good investment right there. Why do you think? But that's what I always do. Ever since I felt like he could mentally handle that conversation, I've been talking to him about it. And the whole reason I even started doing it, because he was asking me to get him something. I said, hold on, buddy. How about you raise your money, you pay for half, and I'll get you on the other half. We'll go half in on this. How about that? And that was the whole reason I started even having this financial conversation with him. So now his junior, senior year of high school, he took a financial literacy course. I said, great. I said, dude, matter of fact, take it a step in further. Take it in college. That's an easy A for you because you're already going to have the knowledge. Now, when you go to the class, that's an easy GPA raiser. Come on, let's be smart about it. I got a friend who's in HR. And a lot of these young people who get into the work field, right, usually they usually between 19 all up to 26 when they really get started. She sit there and told me that a lot of them don't even want to get health insurance, right? Because they're covered under their parents' health insurance. I said, that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. I said, but what is a bad thing? If y'all are offering 401k, 457 raw, they should invest in that. Matter of fact, let me help you young cats go further than that. Normally, y'all graduate from college. More like y'all gonna be in debt, right? Unfortunately, because y'all got student loans. But you still have, when you graduate, most of y'all about between 21 and 22. You have 4 years of income. You can invest your money that you was going to spend on health insurance or dental insurance or visual. Use that money you was going to spend on that and invest into a 401k. Now you got a 4-year gap before you have to actually pay for a health insurance or any other insurance that you need to pay for. You have a 4-year jump start. Now, how smart is that? 4 years, you putting money into it, just like if you was. You don't have to pay for insurance. Daddy got it. Daddy got that family plan. You covered. You ain't got to worry about it. Use that money to invest. Now, ever since the computer came around, there's no excuses why we shouldn't be have financial literacy knowledge at all. There shouldn't be no excuses. And even before the computer, there was a thing they called the library card. They had books in the library. You can go check them out. They had videos. You could check out the VHS tapes. I remember actually doing that, checking out a VHS tape on financial literacy for one of my classes. I learned my financial literacy didn't really achieve to me till I was 20 years old, and I was in college at Murray State. My roommate, his dad was a home loan officer. He told me, he said most average black family don't get their first house till they 30 or 35. Their first house. He said whites, 25. They got 5 to 10 year gap on us. So guess what? All that equity they built in 10 years equity. Now they're moving to their second home. We just got our first.
But also, Hank, that has a lot to do with their parents. Their parents already own a home. The wealth is there, so they're not having as much in terms of student loans that they have to pay for. So, and sometimes the parents take the equity out their home that they've built over the years of having it to pay for their kids' college. And so they have a different...
I'm not talking about those kids who got that privilege. I'm talking about kids who had to work, who's already got student loans, who's doing work studies in order to offset some of that bill of the student loan. Now, of course, he was on scholarship just like me. He was a football player. I was a football player. We was both on scholarship. He was blessed. But not everybody on that campus was blessed like that, where their parents could do that. There was some actually had to pay student loans. So they was getting that same opportunity as everybody else. I understand our parents are not knowledgeable. But guess what? Why do we got to continue to roll down the same roads that our parents did? There were some things our parents made mistakes on. There's some things our parents told us that was a straight out lie. But don't mean we need to go in there and get better. We got to better ourselves. We shouldn't be okay with just being. We should not be like that. So if we want better, we got to do better. It means I need to go out there and get the knowledge that I need to do. If that means I have to pay for it, so be it. I can't come up with excuses after excuses on why not get the knowledge. They got adult learning classes here in Kentucky. And one of them is financial literacy. One is home ownership. One is how to open a business and being an entrepreneur. They got all of those classes. Some of those classes you have to pay for. Some of those are free, depending on your income. Take advantage of it. That's the thing. They're not doing it. They don't want to spend the time and energy and money that it takes to do it.
Yeah,
again,
but
like I said, not all of it, you have to pay for. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lou.
Yeah, but they'll go and spend $2,500 on Beyonce tickets.
Come on, Lou.
Or on Drake tickets.
Lou, you hurt some feelings when you said that.
You know what I'm saying? They ain't missing Bay. They ain't missing when the light-skinned kid comes to town.
I agree with you guys.
Shout out to the Beehive, baby. Shout out to the Beehive. I don't want to come get me.
So the thing is, when I was coming up, I didn't have that financial literacy at all. My mom used to tell us stories about how she joined the military. Her and her friend Maria, every time she would get a check, they would go spend the whole check at the mall. Then they wear the stuff. Then after a couple of days, they realize they have no money, and then they back at the mall taking everything back so they can have some money to eat. So that's the type of environment that I grew up in. Like my mom telling me those stories, right? So when I joined the military, the only thing I wanted to do is make sure that I was not like that. So when I got in, I deployed immediately, and the contractors, they had already been there for years. They were investing, they were buying different homes, they were telling me all these things they were doing. So I got to learn at 22 that this is what I need to be focused on. So I started doing exactly what they were doing. I had no idea. They were like, "Oh, you don't have an E-Trade account? Get an E-Trade account." So it started young for me because I was determined to not be like my mom. So like other people wouldn't be nosy and wouldn't ask questions. I'm always asking questions. I always want to know. So I'm going to ask. And these men love to tell you if you're inquisitive. So they're right there ready to teach you. I'm right there ready to learn. And that's the perfect dynamic, right? So anytime I'm at a point where I'm like, okay, I'm not really sure what to do, I'm the first one to be like, hey, do you know how to do this? Can you help me? And usually they do not say no. I have not experienced people saying, no, I'm not going to help you. Suck it up. I sucked. You suck. That's not what the energy I'm getting. So I encourage people to ask questions when you don't know. Even if you feel like it makes you look stupid, it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. You have to make sure you're getting what you need.
Yeah, we just got to take advantage of our resources. We have to take whether it's a in-person type resource or it's online resources. You could Google it. You could YouTube things. Man, we got too many opportunities. We got too many blessings in 2023 that our aunts and our great aunts and our grandmothers and grandfathers don't have. They relied on word of mouth, right? So, and sometimes they wouldn't always get it because the white man just didn't want you to have that much knowledge. That's no excuse no more in 2023. So why are we allowing it to be?
I'll tell you why. He said we got all these blessings. The blessings that we need is the ones that we don't have. And that's marriage, empowering marriage. Because there's strength in numbers. You need numbers in order to have a community. You need a community in order to have education, political figures to have your back. You know what I'm saying? Economy. You need all those things. And that lady in the video is right. The other races who have wealth built from history had a mutual interest. And that kickstarted generational wealth for their community. They have strength in numbers, which influence laws, politicians, education systems, and many other things that protected those people for years to come. But Black people don't have the strength in numbers. And it's not because of financial literacy. Financial literacy for you can only go as far as your own household. We don't have financial literacy on a level directed towards Black people in the group effort. Everything in the Black race and how we operate is individualized or based only on our household because we don't have a community to influence our people as a whole. You know, so if we want strength in numbers, we got to do away with this independent mindset in the Western culture. You know, most women prioritize independence and Black women are the most unmarried. So how are we going to have strength in numbers? We got to empower marriage. We're rely on our children in the future to set the tone. But we can't do that because we so individualized, we so separated.
Yeah, that's so, you hit that nail right on the head. You know, it's crazy. I want to share a quick story. So this happened years ago. I met this guy, Mexican dude, him and like 2 other brothers, and highest level of education is like 9th grade. You know what I'm saying? But they work construction and they work other odd jobs, and they will pool their money together, group economics, right? And to the point that they bought a house together, like a 3-family, and all of them lived in that 1 bedroom, in that, 3-bedroom apartment on 1 level, and they rented out the rest. And then they rinse, wash, repeat process until they built up wealth.
Please.
I'm sorry, did you say something, Jill? Yeah, you know what I'm saying? They did that process until they built up wealth, to the point that even when one of them found a wife, she moved in and she would take care of all the household stuff while they went out and worked. And then the other 2 dudes will move up into 1 apartment, rent out 1. The couple will live on the other floor, until the point that all of them got married, and then they took the equity and then bought another property and then repeat that same business. You know what I'm saying? But it took a group effort. They invested in each other, that group economics sort of position. And I think that, unfortunately, one thing that I know that we talked about before is that a lot of parents kick their kids out at 18. So how can you start? You just got out of high school. You don't really have any real world experience or life experience. And even if you grew up in a household where they didn't pass down the best of moral standards and values, right? You're starting off at a bit of a disadvantage because you're trying to hustle and grind and save money and go to school and all these things, but you don't have a support system to help you get to that point. You know, some people stay in their parents' home even after they finish college because they save money on room and board. They save money not having to be somebody else's tenant, but rather your own parents under your own household, saving that money, right? Making that work for you until they're ready to leave out. And then even by then, they will leave in a much better position to purchase their own home, start their own business, you know, invest in themselves in other ways and create other vehicles of revenue. But we got to kind of get away from that. Well, you're 18, you're a man or you're a young woman. All right, off you go. Because I think that sets up a lot of people off for failure.
Because whether you like it or not, when we do get our money, when we do build a lot of wealth, if Luis go get a trucking business going together and stuff, or if Chanel go get a degree, basically 99% of the work and the revenue we generating off of our degrees, all of that money is not going into our people's hands. We're going to go work in somebody else's community, and that don't represent us. We're helping them flow generational wealth into their children and their communities. We don't have nothing coming in and out of our community, out of our people as a group of interest. We can go create a business where we delivering goods and services and stuff to stock stores up. But the stuff we putting on our trucks, you know, no knock on the people who got their own trucking business, but the stuff we putting in the trucks, that's going into the stores, the people that don't look like us. That's coming from the farm fields of the people that don't look like us. So inevitably, you're still supporting. You're just a support. Black people is just a support mechanism for other races. That's why we're forever at the bottom.
What is it like? The dollar only circulates 6 hours in the Black community, and then like
by the time Friday and Saturday get here, it's gone. We're bankrupt.
Well, I was gonna say I agree with that. Definitely, but I think the bigger issue is just even before we can even talk about wealth and generational wealth, we have to get back to basics. And I think that's the problem, is that we don't even just understand the basics in terms of budgeting. Just having a basic budget about making sure that you're not overspending. And I think that's the problem with our community, is that we spend more than what we have. I remember my sister and I were having a conversation, and I know, like, when you count for inflation and things like that, it's different. But with my grandparents, they started off with nothing. I remember my mom told me they ended up getting a house, their first house they purchased. It was like $700, but it had like a tree stump growing up in the middle of the living room floor. But that was what they could afford. And over time, you know, they worked, they built to add on to that house, to fix it up, you know, and make it, you know, a home that was sufficient. And they understood the power of a dollar to spend less than what you have, you know, the budget, and then and put that investment back into something else. And they ended up owning several houses later on. And when I look at the amount of money that they were making at that time versus what we're making now, even accounting for inflation, they were living a whole lot better than what we were. And being able to leave the amount of stuff that they have for their kids. So I think, you know, even though we can look at the fact that we were, you know, left out of some of the opportunities that white people had access to, there are things that we can do now that don't even relate to, like, you know, having to know Bitcoin and E-Trade and all of that. If we just did the basic, which living below your means can help set us up, you know, better than previous generations. But we don't want to sacrifice anything. And I think that's more of the problem.
I totally agree with that. I'd also like to add, I would love to see more Black people in the STEM fields. I think if you're not in a STEM thing, a STEM degree in college, then you're probably wasting your time. Getting into a trade, I believe, is also good too, where you can start your own business. But if you're doing degrees where it's not making a lot of money, or it's easy for a recession to knock you out of making money, I think it's a waste of time to dedicate your education or a degree on that. So STEM fields, I think, is where we should be focusing on as a community.
I think the focus, I think degrees are fine, but I think the best degree, the best certificate, the best diploma, the best piece of paper for a Black person to have right now is a goddamn marriage certificate. It's a marriage certificate. You know why? Because what's that going to do is that's going to decrease the likelihood of our children being locked up, incarcerated, in poverty, childhood trauma, suicide rate, and all these other things, and a part of the single mother epidemic. That should be Black people can't afford to operate like the other races, because we don't have nothing to go back to. We don't have nothing to fall back towards. We don't have nothing that's going to catch us. We don't have nothing that can police us. So we can't afford to take up the same foolishness that other races are doing. They have things set in stone for them. We don't have that. We should be exempt from all of that.
Well, Bruiser, you talk about that, but not every woman's going to be able to get married because there's not enough men to marry every woman. And some women are men just not for marriage, don't believe in marriage. It's not in for. So what are we going to do about those men?
This is what I would say. I would say we should just try. We should try first to see what it looked like, because we can't just say every woman, because a lot of women don't even like men in today's status. So every woman wouldn't get married to a man anyways. But I'm saying when two parents are in a household, these children are highly likely to be more successful than one parent being in the household.
I mean, I agree with that. But again, for the individuals who is not going to go down that avenue, we also got to have a solution for them. So I agree with what Ms. Taker said, living below your means. That's a great idea. I do it right now.
But if you're an individual,
I operate, I live below my means because I don't need to go out there and have the most lavish things all the time. I just don't. But what I do is I invest it back into my homes. That's where all my money goes in. I invest it back to my homes. So the rental property I got, I reinvested back into that. To my current residence, I invested back into that. So what I did, I needed a new pool. This other pool was rusted out. I tore that thing down. I built a concrete slab down there, put my son's basketball gun. I got a thing in the back. But guess what I also did? Further in the back of my backyard. I got a nice size backyard. I put a pool back there to raise the property value on my house.
Well,
because I reinvested it back into my home.
The things I'm saying, it only applies to the people that actually aspire to have kids and want to see us move the needle on getting our Black community established. If those people don't want to do that, then by all means, they can do what they want.
But we also need them to be financially where they need to be at. It's all part of the big plan, though, Bruiser. I understand what you said, and I agree because I'm on the road to get married myself. You understand what I'm saying? So I agree with that. I have no problem with that. I'm all for it. But at the same time, I also got to worry about that next man or that next woman who's just been hurt, beat down, divorced 3 times, is just not willing to do it again.
But see, what we trying to do is we working in reverse. We trying to have some type of standard for our people, financially and education wise and all this other stuff. But we don't even have a community to go and look at it and say, look, we're going to do this in a mutual way where we all on the same accord, on the same wavelength. What I'm saying is, first, let's build that wavelength. Let's build that mutual interest, build that group where we all hitting on the same note. And then we can go look at how to be financial, have the same financial standards, have the same education standards, have the same standards on how we run a household. Only way we can do that is we have to come together as a family.